Hey guys, and hey people of RedTube, YouTube Red. Uh, so I was asked to do a basic overview of Harmor. So that's what we're gonna do. Again, there's no examples. I'm just going to show you basically the essentials, like the bare bones basic. Like we're not gonna dip too far into it. So Harmor in itself is an additive synthesizer, which just means that it's all synthesis comprised of sine waves. Just think of it like that. Just think of pushing sine waves together and you got a saw. Ooh. So on the surface, it looks a little daunting because you got a lot of options already. And then you open here and you have tons more. Basically, this is just stuff that you can draw. Okay, just think of it as lots of opportunities for you to draw weird shapes to get weird shit out of. Here, this is going to be what you use to go between this waveform and this waveform, or timber. So timber 1, timber 2. And it's just a saw to a square. So you heard it change, blah. From here, you can... Oh, excuse me. You can draw your shapes, sort of. It's not necessarily for shapes. It's the harmonic level. So you're adding harmonics, kind of like what you do in Citrus, except you get to draw a shape, and then you can see it change. For example, if you right-click and then drag it all the way to the bottom left, look at that. It's a sine wave. Except the only difference is there's this little middle line here. If you wanted a like true blue sine wave, drop that down, boom, sine wave. Otherwise, it would have been like, there's like a little noise, but I'm not too sure if you can hear it. But basically, if you sweep it like this, you can hear the difference in like sine to saw. So that's kind of how that works. And you can see it up here in the top. Well, not while I'm talking, but this area you can watch. Here, we'll do it again. And if you go up here, just a quick warning, this might get a little loud. It's almost kind of like a sync filter, and I believe Massive had something like that. Wow, sync, I meant high pass, but... So you can just right-click, make some... It's funny because you can kind of see the awkward, like, mishap in shape. And let's put that back. So there's that. This right here, when you first open it up, before you touch anything else, this is going to be your like envelope for like your volume and shit. In order to activate it, you have to click here so that it's got a filled in circle. Otherwise, you won't get the effect. Otherwise, it's just straight up no attack, no release, and pure hold. But if you enable it, it waits to do this section, and then it goes to the release. So that was me holding the note. You'll see that little playback. So if you sync at the tempo, and you can click and drag that. And you can do that. Get rid of the release is what I just did. Okay. So we got that little short sound. I'll keep that for the rest of the tutorial. So, just kidding. Let's disable that. So we're going to move down from the shapes. So you go down here, and you'll see this prism now. You're probably thinking to yourself, what is prism? There's a little graph, like a little picture here, and there's a little graph here. Now, this is where I'm going to throw a like a word at you. You're going to be like, huh? So, you've probably heard before fundamental tone. That's right here. So I'm hitting C3. Yeah, C3. Duh, it's right there. That is the fundamental tone. Now, Prism is like a form of detuning, and what it does is it moves all the frequencies except the fundamental tone. So it kind of like stretches them and divides them apart. And I want you to look at this graph up top here, and then I want you to look at the EQ while I do this, and you'll see what it does. Or let me detach this really quick. Detached. Okay. Now watch. Okay. Now you see how it grabbed like every other harmonic and switched it around, which by the way, those are the harmonics. Harmonics. Ugh. Hear myself in my headphone. Slight delay. Ugh. So every other harmonic there, it just kind of just moves them. It's like a different form of detune. It's kind of cool. You can get some interesting effects. You can also multiply it, which is multiplying is obviously a lot more than adding, so it just basically does that. So that's the surface of that. There's more options here, but that's a little too in depth for now. So right here we have the harmonizer. I'm going to make this very simple and quick for you. Think of harmonizer as a highlighter. It highlights each individual harmonic per octave. So in this case, it's just an octave higher. So it sounds different when you layer them together, but when you use the harmonizer, it just kind of does that. Width makes it obviously more noticeable. By the way, you can automate these. So think of the interesting effects you get by automating that. I think that's kind of cool. This shift just basically shifts up the harmonics that it highlights. So instead of going up by 2 steps, goes to 1. So you can see what it does there. The next part, the fun part, is the unison. So basically, if you want to make a super saw, this is where you're going to go. A lot of you are probably going to do that. So you can go from 2 to 9. So I'm assuming you all know what unison is, but for a quick overview, unison is just stacking the same sound however many times this number is. That's really all that is. Phase will change each individual stack's starting position from the original one. I know that kind of sounds convoluted, so let's just use a vocal for now. So let's reattach this too so I can. So all you have to do is just think of it like this. So that's a unison of 2, but the phases are exactly the same. Sorry, that was probably loud. But if you move it ever so slightly, their phases are different. So that's basically what unison is. Just in case you didn't know, you'll see the pitch here, pitch detune. Oh, I don't have it selected. Oops. Pitch detune. I don't think I need to explain what that does. Panning, same thing. You can spread it out. So this is going to be on both sides. Just total equals spread, so it's all different. But the closer you get, you're going to get that like feed me style like. Now, another interesting thing is here where it says phase randomness, you can also do this. So make it so that it's spectral random. Or if you go here, actually, let's do that. That makes it easier. It's a slight, just changes the phase. If you go here, it just makes the phases all completely just randomized or no, it keeps in the same. Why did I say randomized? I meant the other way, spectral random. Sorry. So with that in mind, then you have 3 different blurs here, or not blurs, but unison, what was it called? Detune patterns, I think it was called in the manual. So you got classic, blur, uniform, then random switches between the 3 each note. Not very noticeable, but it can change things, especially when you have them processed a lot. So from here, we're going to move on to the filters. You got lots of filter choices here: low pass, band stop, high pass. So it goes from classic, crude, hill, and then you got all these other ones, but just keep it, we're going to keep it as classic. I'm going to do this. Don't worry about that. That'll be for a different video. So we should know what low pass does, but if you don't, you're going to see this width here. This is almost the same as resonance, but because of how Harmor works as an additive synthesizer, it is not. So if you do that, if you raise it all the way up, you get a less dry filter cut, and that's just because it's really wide. Now you'll notice if we go here, it's really small, really small. And then you can see it's sweeping back and forth. So put that back to normal. Put the resonance up here. That's for another time. So that resonance is the equivalent to you making a filter and doing this. So this is like the resonance. While this, it would be like automating this as the width, this as the resonance. I know that sounds weird, but again, I'll make another video on how I use EQ as filters because it's crazy, dude. It's wicked crazy. Now, the fun thing about the filters is you can right-click on them, or any knob for that matter, and you can do this. Edit Articulator takes you to the Articulator page to where you can draw the shapes. This is the Articulator page. Now, we'll talk about that in a sec. So here, if I sync it to tempo, you can keep it on envelope, LFO, keyboard mapping, velocity mapping, X, Y, Z, which is this graph right here, or my favorite random mapping, which I'll make a video for that later, unison index, held index, and mod X speed. You got lots of choices. For the sake of this tutorial and time, I'm just going to use envelope. So that's just going to be a, you don't see much or hear much happening. Why? Because it's turned all the way up, the frequency knob. So turn that down. And basically play with it from there. And I'm trying to make that bigger. So pull that all the way up. This is why I like Harmor so much. I like being able to draw these shapes. And you can do this on anything here. Like you can even do in the detune here. This is a little cool feature. This is a little advanced. So the envelope starts at the top left, which means it starts from the highest point, wherever this is at. So if we have it all the way up here, it starts all the way up there. or here it starts only here. So if I have it sync the tempo and drop it down, you'll make like a synth brass, like a synth trumpet. So that's cool. That's cool. We'll keep that. All right, so let's move down to here. Pluck. This is my favorite. Pluck is the same thing as filter, but it's a little different in how it works. If you want a more detailed reason why pluck is not a filter, I will put in the description of the video a link to Seamless, and I'll link his video. He does a very good job explaining like a more in depth of Harmor and what things do and why they do, for all the technical people out there that want to know why does it do that. I'm trying to make this as less technical as possible. So pluck does this. And much like the frequency articulation, you can do the same thing here, change how the shape works a little bit. But it does not work the same way. And I don't exactly have an explanation as to why, which I do apologize for. I haven't really looked into it because I've never had to do it. And we got phaser. And this will be a brief overview as well. Phaser. So turn the mix all the way up, and you can see in this area up here what looks to be about 4 starts here, and then here, and then here, and then there. But the width will change that. So that's how that works. Then you got different variations of it, like classic triangle, which changes the shape. Eggs. Deep. Which really changes the sound. So this is speed, pretty self-explanatory. Offset, just where it starts. If you turn the speed off and set to still, it's going to stay, right? The cool thing about this is you can then automate the offset and move it wherever you want, how you want it to move. So that's another option. So that's, really cool because you can automate it. And a little tip. Say you draw a shape like I did with the unison pitch area here. If you go in here and you're like, which one of these did I change? You'll see right here, this little triangle pointing to the right arrow thing. Boom, right there. So you'll see that there. And a little interesting tip, go to harmonic unison pitch. So say you have this, let's turn this to regular. Okay, go back to harmonic unison pitch. This is just a little bit of an advanced tip. When you have unison pitch thickness engaged to about like here, well, basically anywhere, this gives you the ability to draw what I like to call the harmonic detune shape. So basically you're shaping the way that it detunes. So for example, that sounds different than, because it's like where it gets lower here, there's no movement going, and then the movement slowly comes up to speed here. Now if you do this, you can hear it's like a weird, muddy, skelchy, like you can hear it. It's interesting because you're only detuning these harmonics by a lot and then detuning these by a little more than where this is at. Or you can go crazy and I mean, you can make some weird sounds by doing that, but that's like one of my favorite things to do. You can add images and like resynthesize stuff. So like by clicking on this image tab, by the way, this is going to be the first thing you do. If you want things to be keyed where they should be, like C for C, D for D, etc., take this and bring it to 0%. But we'll go more in depth in that in another tutorial. So you have effects here, distortion, chorus, blah, that's all self-explanatory. And then advanced, you have the performance versus quality. This is just if your CPU sucks. Mine's okay, it can handle like a lot of Harmors. So precision, perfect. I don't hear much of a difference if I'm being honest. For image and resynthesis, this only affects if you use this. Now, I can't tell you when you would want to use high precision. It really just depends on the sound you want because listen to this. So you have that. Okay, we could clearly hear that there was note changes there. Now, high precision. It sounds a little different. I personally hardly use that, but there might be, times that you would. And then the final thing here, actually not final, but right before the final. This is the EQ if you want to, shape your EQ. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then really quick, this is like the legato and stuff. So if you want portamento, click on that. This changes the... You can change the legato algorithm curve by clicking on those. Legato here and portamento or just legato. So it can be... So that's pretty much it. I hope this was helpful, and we'll go over another one of these sometime next week, maybe. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If there's anything else that you want me to go over in other synths or anything that you're curious about that I could go over, let me know in the comments. I guess like and subscribe if you want. There will be more funnies and more tutorials and stuff.